Dr. Maya Rodriguez never expected her Tuesday morning to turn into the strangest day of her scientific career. She was standing behind the wooden podium at the Grand Conference Hall in Geneva, Switzerland, presenting her latest research to some of the smartest people in the world. The room was filled with doctors, scientists, and researchers from every corner of the globe, all gathered for the International Conference on Human Biology. Maya had spent months preparing for this moment. Her PowerPoint slides were perfect. Her data was solid and her confidence was high. She was talking about human fertility patterns around the world, showing charts and graphs that proved something everyone thought they already knew. Humans could have babies any time of the year, unlike animals that only mate during specific seasons. The audience was listening politely, taking notes, nodding their heads. Everything was going exactly as planned. Maya clicked to her next slide, which showed birth records from hospitals across 6 different continents. The data was crystal clear. January babies, July babies, October babies, they were all there in the numbers. That's when it happened. A voice cut through the quiet conference room like a sword through silk. It was elegant, confident, and completely unexpected. "Excuse me, but I must stop you right there." Maya froze. In all her years of giving presentations, nobody had ever interrupted her mid-sentence. She looked up from her notes to see who had spoken. In the front row sat a young woman who looked like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. She was wearing the most beautiful traditional dress Maya had ever seen, with intricate gold embroidery that sparkled under the conference room lights. A small but unmistakable crown sat perfectly on her head, and her posture was straighter than a ruler. Everything about her screamed royalty. The woman stood up gracefully, and Maya noticed that every person in the room had turned to stare. Conversations stopped. Pens stopped moving across papers. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet down. "I am Princess Layla Al-Mansouri of the Kingdom of Zephyria," she announced in perfect English with a slight British accent. "And I'm afraid your research is completely wrong." Maya felt her mouth drop open. In 20 years of scientific work, she had been questioned, challenged, and even argued with. But she had never been told she was completely wrong by actual royalty. She gripped the sides of the podium a little tighter. "I'm sorry, Your Highness," Maya managed to say, trying to keep her voice steady. "Could you please explain what you mean?" Princess Layla smiled, but it wasn't a mean smile. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they're about to share a secret that will blow your mind. "You claim that humans can reproduce at any time of the year," the princess said, gesturing toward Maya's slides. "But this is simply impossible. I have lived for 25 years, and I have never, not once, seen a baby born outside of the spring months. Not a single one." The conference room was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Maya looked around and saw faces filled with confusion, curiosity, and barely contained amusement. Dr. Peterson from Harvard was leaning forward in his seat like he was watching the most interesting movie of his life. Professor Kim from Seoul had her hand covering her mouth, probably trying not to laugh. Maya took a deep breath. She realized she was dealing with someone very special here. This wasn't just any person challenging her research. This was clearly someone very intelligent. You don't accidentally end up at an international scientific conference, but who somehow had a completely different understanding of human biology. "Your Highness," Maya said carefully, "I understand your observations, but I have data here from hospitals around the world showing births in every month of the year." Princess Layla waved her hand dismissively, and Maya noticed she was wearing rings that probably cost more than Maya's car. "Your Western data must be flawed," the princess declared. "In my kingdom, babies arrive like clockwork every April and May. Our royal physician has kept detailed records for decades. The pattern never changes. Ever." Maya realized something incredible was happening. This princess wasn't being difficult or trying to cause trouble. She genuinely believed what she was saying. She had observed a real pattern in her own experience and assumed it applied to all humans everywhere. I have documented evidence, Princess Layla continued, reaching into an elegant leather bag and pulling out a thick folder. 17 years of birth records from our kingdom. Every single birth falls within the same 2-month period. If humans could truly reproduce year-round, as you claim, wouldn't we see birth spread throughout the year? The logic was perfect, even if the conclusion was wrong. Maya felt a mixture of admiration and amazement. This princess was thinking like a true scientist, just working with limited data. Dr. Williams from the World Health Organization stood up from his seat in the middle of the room. Your Highness, this is fascinating, but surely you must know that birth patterns can vary significantly between different cultures and regions? Princess Layla turned to face him, her crown catching the light and sending tiny rainbows across the wall. Of course they can vary slightly, but the fundamental biological truth remains the same. Humans, like most mammals, have specific reproductive seasons. What Dr. Rodriguez is suggesting would make humans completely unique in the animal kingdom. Maya felt a spark of excitement. This wasn't just an interruption anymore. This was turning into the most interesting scientific discussion she had ever been part of. Here was someone with clearly excellent education and sharp analytical skills, but with a completely different set of observed facts. Your Highness, Maya said, would you be willing to examine some additional evidence? I think we might be able to solve this puzzle together. Princess Layla's eyes lit up with curiosity. I would be delighted, but I warn you, Dr. Rodriguez, I have never been wrong about a scientific observation in my life. This should be quite interesting indeed. The audience began to murmur with excitement. What had started as a routine research presentation was turning into something nobody would ever forget. What happened next turned into the most unusual scientific debate anyone in that conference room had ever witnessed. Dr. Maya Rodriguez found herself in a position she had never imagined, defending basic human biology to a princess who was absolutely convinced she was wrong. Princess Layla opened her leather folder and spread several documents across the table in front of her. The papers looked official, with gold seals and fancy letterheads. Maya could see charts, graphs, and what appeared to be birth certificates, all organized with the precision of someone who took record-keeping very seriously. Look at this data, Princess Layla said, her voice filled with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. These are the official birth records from the Royal Medical Center in my kingdom. Every birth for the past 17 years is documented here. She held up a beautifully handwritten chart that looked like it belonged in a museum. The numbers were written in elegant script, with different colored inks marking different years. Maya squinted to read the details from her position at the podium. April 7th, April 15th, April 23rd, Princess Layla read aloud. May 2nd, May 9th, May 18th. Do you see the pattern, Dr. Rodriguez? Not a single birth. Outside of these 2 months, not one. Dr. Chen from Beijing University raised her hand. Your Highness, that's certainly interesting, but how large is the population of your kingdom? Princess Layla straightened her shoulders proudly. We have nearly 8,000 citizens in our beautiful kingdom, all living in harmony, all following the natural biological rhythms that humans have followed for thousands of years. Maya felt a light bulb starting to flicker in her mind, but she wasn't quite ready to share her thoughts yet. Instead, she clicked to a new slide on her presentation screen. Your Highness, I'd like to show you some data from different parts of the world. This chart shows birth patterns in Norway, where they have very long winters and very short summers. The slide displayed a graph with births spread fairly evenly throughout the year, with just a small peak in late summer. Princess Layla studied it carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. This must be incorrect, she said finally. Perhaps their record-keeping is not as precise as ours. Or maybe the harsh climate has disrupted their natural patterns. Professor Johnson from Australia stood up. Your Highness, I have to respectfully disagree. In my country, we see births throughout the year as well. I've personally delivered babies in every single month. Princess Layla turned to face him, and Maya noticed that despite her certainty, the princess was genuinely listening to every word. She wasn't just being stubborn, she was trying to understand how her observations could be so different from everyone else's. Dr. Johnson, with all due respect, perhaps you should examine your data more carefully. There must be seasonal patterns that you're missing. All mammals have reproductive seasons. Lions, elephants, deer, wolves, they all follow natural cycles. Why would humans be any different? Maya realized something remarkable about Princess Layla. She wasn't just making wild claims, she was thinking scientifically. Her logic was actually quite sound based on what she had observed. The problem was that her observations came from a very small, very specific group of people. Your Highness, Maya said gently, you mentioned that your kingdom has 8,000 people. That's a wonderful community, but it's quite small compared to some of the populations we study. For instance, this next slide shows birth data from Tokyo, Japan, which has over 9 million people. The new slide showed a city with births happening every single day of the year, with slight variations, but no dramatic seasonal patterns. Princess, Layla stared at the numbers for a long moment. 9 million people, she repeated slowly. That's more than 1,000 times larger than my kingdom. Exactly, Maya said. And when we look at larger populations, we start to see different patterns emerge. But Princess Layla wasn't ready to give up. She stood up again and walked closer to the projection screen, her elegant dress rustling softly as she moved. Maya noticed that despite her royal bearing, there was something very human and curious about the way she studied the data. But Dr. Rodriguez, even in a large population, wouldn't natural biological rhythms still apply? If humans truly reproduced year-round, wouldn't this make us completely unique among mammals? Dr. Williams from the World Health Organization cleared his throat. Your Highness, humans are quite unique in many ways. We're one of the few mammals that don't have a specific mating season. Princess Layla spun around to face him. But why? What makes humans so different? Every other animal follows these patterns. My horses have foals in spring. The birds in our royal gardens nest at specific times. Even our palace cats have kittens during particular seasons. Maya felt her excitement growing. This princess was asking exactly the right questions. She was thinking like a true scientist, even if her data was limited. That's an excellent question, Your Highness. The answer has to do with human evolution and our development of agriculture, medicine, and stable food supplies. Unlike wild animals, humans have created conditions that allow reproduction throughout the year. Princess Layla walked back to her folder and pulled out another document. But in my kingdom, we also have stable food supplies, excellent medicine, and advanced agriculture, yet our pattern remains consistent. Maya realized they were getting close to something important. Your Highness, could you tell us more about the traditions and customs in your kingdom? For instance, when do people typically get married? Princess. Layla's eyes lit up. Oh, we have the most beautiful tradition. Every summer during the Festival of Golden Sands, the entire kingdom celebrates together. It's our most important holiday, lasting for 7 days in late June. Most couples choose to marry during this time because it's considered the most blessed and joyful period of the year. Maya felt the pieces of the puzzle starting to click together. In her mind, June weddings plus 9 months would equal April and May babies, but she decided not to reveal her theory just yet. She wanted Princess Layla to discover the connection herself. That sounds like a wonderful tradition, Maya said, and I imagine it brings the whole community together. Oh, yes, Princess Layla said, her face glowing with pride. Everyone participates. The music, the dancing, the feasting, it's magical. Nearly every couple in the kingdom chooses that week for their wedding because they want to share their joy with everyone. The conference room was completely silent now. Maya could tell that several other scientists had figured out the connection, but they were all waiting to see what would happen next. The next 3 days turned into something nobody at the conference had ever experienced before. Princess Layla didn't just accept Maya's explanation, she demanded a full investigation. And when royalty demands something, people tend to make it happen. Maya found herself in the strange position of becoming a private tutor to a princess. They had taken over one of the smaller conference rooms, and the table was now covered with laptops, printed research papers, birth certificates from around the world, and several cups of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Princess Layla was nothing like Maya had expected. Behind all the royal elegance and fancy clothes was someone who asked the kind of sharp questions that made Maya's brain work harder than it had in years. "Show me Brazil," Princess Layla said, pointing at Maya's laptop screen. "If your theory is correct, I should see births spread throughout the year, even in a country with very different seasons than mine." Maya pulled up the data from São Paulo, one of the largest cities in South America. The graph showed births happening in every month, with slight variations, but no dramatic peaks, like the ones in Princess Layla's kingdom. Princess Layla studied the numbers for several minutes, her finger tracing the lines on the screen. Maya watched her face, trying to read her thoughts. The princess had this habit of biting her lower lip when she was concentrating really hard. "This is confusing," Princess Layla admitted. "Look at this. They have more babies born in March, and fewer in June. But in my kingdom, we have 0 babies in March and 0 in June. How is this possible if we're all the same species?" Maya opened another file. "Let's look at different countries and see if we can spot any patterns. Here's data from Sweden. The Swedish data showed a small peak in late summer and early fall." Princess Layla leaned closer to the screen. "Why would Swedish babies be born more often in September and October?" she asked. "Well," Maya said, trying not to smile, "if babies are born in September, when do you think they were conceived?" Princess Layla did the math in her head. "December and January. But why would—" She stopped suddenly, her eyes widening. "Oh, the long, cold winters. People spend more time indoors together." "Exactly," Maya said. "You're starting to see how culture and environment can influence birth patterns." But Princess Layla wasn't satisfied. Yet. She pulled out her phone and started making calls. Maya couldn't understand the language she was speaking, but she could tell from the tone that Princess Layla was giving someone very detailed instructions. "I've asked my assistant to gather more information from our kingdom," Princess Layla explained, after hanging up. "I want birth records from our neighboring countries as well. If your theory is correct, they should show different patterns than ours." Maya was impressed. This princess wasn't just accepting new information, she was actively testing it. 2 hours later, Princess Layla's phone rang. She answered it and spoke rapidly in her native language, taking notes on a piece of hotel stationery. Maya watched her expression change from confusion to surprise to something that looked like the beginning of understanding. "Dr. Rodriguez," Princess Layla said slowly, "my assistant has just given me very interesting information. Our neighboring kingdom of Al-Jawhara has most of their babies born in February and March." "Really? And when do they typically hold their wedding celebrations?" Princess Layla was quiet for a moment, clearly doing calculations in her head. "They have their Festival of Stars in late spring, around May. Their biggest wedding season is—" She paused. "May and June," Maya nodded encouragingly. "And May and June weddings would lead to February and March babies," Princess Layla finished. She stared at Maya for a long moment. "Are you telling me that what I thought was a biological law is actually just a cultural coincidence?" "What do you think?" Maya asked gently. Princess Layla stood up and began pacing around the small conference room. Maya could practically see the gears turning in her mind. She was someone who had built her understanding of the world on careful observation, and now she was discovering that her observations, while accurate, had led her to the wrong conclusion. "But this means—" Princess Layla stopped pacing and looked directly at Maya. "This means I've been completely wrong about something I was absolutely certain about." Maya expected her to be upset or embarrassed. Instead, Princess Layla started laughing. Not a polite royal laugh, but a real, genuine, delighted laugh that filled the entire room. "Do you know what this means, Dr. Rodriguez?" Princess Layla said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "This means the world is far more interesting than I thought it was." She sat back down and grabbed Maya's laptop. "Show me more countries. I want to see if I can predict their birth patterns based on their cultural traditions." Maya pulled up data from India, and Princess Layla studied it carefully. India has many different regions with different traditions, correct? So their patterns should be more complex. "That's right," Maya said, impressed by how quickly Princess Layla was grasping the concept. The Indian data showed multiple small peaks throughout the year, reflecting the diversity of cultures, religions, and traditions across the country. "Fascinating," Princess Layla murmured. "Each community probably has its own preferred times for weddings and celebrations." They spent the next hour looking at data from different countries around the world. Princess Layla had Maya show her birth patterns from places with different climates, different religions, different economic conditions. With each new set of data, she became more excited. "Dr. Rodriguez, I have to ask you something," Princess Layla said, as they were looking at data from Iceland. "How did you figure out what I was missing? What made you realize that my observations were culturally based rather than biologically based?" Maya smiled. "Honestly, Your Highness, it was your own words that gave me the clue. When you mentioned that everyone in your kingdom gets married during the Festival of Golden Sands, I just did the math. June weddings plus 9 months equals April and May babies." Princess Layla shook her head in amazement. "I had all the pieces of the puzzle right, in front of me. I just never thought to put them together that way." "That's the beautiful thing about science," Maya said. "Sometimes the most obvious answer is hiding right in plain sight." Princess Layla closed the laptop and looked at Maya with the expression that was part embarrassment and part pure joy. "Dr. Rodriguez, I owe you an apology, and I owe that entire conference room an apology. I was so confident, so certain, that I was right." "You were observing accurately," Maya said. "You just needed more data to see the bigger picture. That's what good scientists do. They change their minds when they discover new information." Princess Layla smiled. "Well then, I suppose this makes me a scientist after all." The moment Princess Layla truly understood what had happened was something Maya would remember for the rest of her life. They were sitting in that small conference room, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups, when everything finally clicked into place for the princess. "Oh my goodness," Princess Layla said, her hand covering her mouth. "June weddings, 9 months, April babies." She looked up at Maya with eyes that were wide with realization. "I've been observing a cultural pattern and calling it a biological law." Maya nodded, watching as Princess Layla's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, embarrassment, and then something unexpected. Pure joy. Princess Layla burst into laughter. Not the polite, controlled laughter that Maya expected from royalty, but real, honest, delighted laughter that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. She laughed so hard that tears started rolling down her cheeks, and she had to take off her small crown to wipe her eyes. "I can't believe it," she said between giggles. "I interrupted an international scientific conference to argue about something I completely misunderstood. I must have looked like the most foolish person in the world." But Maya didn't think she had looked foolish at all. "Your Highness, you were thinking like a true scientist. You made observations, you found patterns, and you formed a theory. The only thing you were missing was more data." Princess Layla stood up and started pacing again, but this time her movements were full of energy and excitement rather than confusion. But Maya, this is incredible. This means that human behavior is so much more complex and interesting than I ever imagined. Maya noticed that the princess had started calling her by her first name instead of the formal Dr. Rodriguez. Somehow, their scientific investigation had turned them into friends. You know what this means? Princess Layla continued. Every culture around the world probably has its own patterns. Every community creates its own rhythms based on their traditions, their climate, their beliefs. It's like a giant puzzle where every piece is different, but they all fit together to show us how humans really live. Maya smiled. That's exactly right. And that's what makes studying human behavior so fascinating. We're not just following biological instincts. We're creating our own patterns based on culture and choice. Princess Layla sat back down, but she was still buzzing with excitement. I need to learn everything. Show me more data. I want to understand how economics affects birth patterns, and religion, and education levels, and climate change, and technology. For the next several hours, Maya found herself giving Princess Layla a crash course in global demographics. They looked at how birth rates changed during wars, during economic crashes, during times of prosperity. They examined how access to health care and education influenced family planning decisions around the world. Princess Layla was like a sponge, absorbing every piece of information and asking questions that Maya had never thought of before. In my kingdom, Princess Layla said thoughtfully, we have such stability, such abundance. Everyone has enough food, good health care, safe housing. I never realized how much privilege shapes even our understanding of basic biology. Maya pulled up data from refugee camps, where birth patterns often reflected trauma and uncertainty rather than cultural celebrations. Princess Layla studied the numbers in silence for a long time. These families are having babies based on hope, she said quietly. Hope that tomorrow will be better than today. It's not about seasons or traditions. It's about human resilience. Maya was impressed by how quickly Princess Layla was grasping not just the science, but the human stories behind the numbers. Maya, Princess Layla said suddenly, I need to ask you something important. In your research, have you found communities that lack access to education about family planning? Places where people might benefit from learning about reproductive health? Unfortunately, yes, Maya replied. There are many communities around the world where people don't have access to basic information about fertility, pregnancy care, or family planning options. Princess Layla was quiet for a moment, and Maya could see that she was thinking deeply about something. You know, Princess Layla said slowly, I realize now how sheltered my perspective has been. I lived in a bubble where I thought my limited observations represented universal truth. But if someone with my education and resources could make such fundamental assumptions, imagine what misconceptions might exist in communities with less access to scientific education. Maya nodded. That's actually a really important point. Education and access to information can make a huge difference in people's health and well-being. Princess Layla stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Swiss mountains in the distance. My father always taught me that with privilege comes responsibility. I've been given so much: education, resources, a platform that people listen to. Maybe it's time I used those gifts to help others. She turned back to Maya with a determined expression. What if we could bring this kind of education to communities that need it? What if we could help people understand their own health and make informed decisions about their families? Maya felt a flutter of excitement. That's a wonderful idea, but it would be a huge undertaking. It would require funding, research, cultural sensitivity, partnerships with local communities. I have funding, Princess Layla said simply. My kingdom has been blessed with natural resources, and after today, I know I have the passion to learn more. What I don't have is the expertise. She looked directly at Maya. But you do. Maya stared at her new friend. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Princess Layla grinned. I'm suggesting that my embarrassing mistake in that conference room might have been the best thing that ever happened to both of us. Maya, would you consider partnering with me to create something that could actually help people around the world? Maya thought about all the communities she had studied, all the families who could benefit from better access to reproductive health education and services. She thought about the passion and resources that Princess Layla could bring to such a project, and the scientific expertise she could contribute herself. Princess Layla, Maya said, I think that's the most brilliant idea I've heard all year. Princess Layla clapped her hands together with delight. Then let's do it. Let's turn my scientific mistake into something that can make the world a little bit better. As they shook hands on their new partnership, Maya realized that sometimes the most important discoveries don't happen in laboratories or lecture halls. Sometimes they happen when two people from completely different worlds discover that they share the same curiosity, the same passion for learning, and the same desire to help others. The princess who had interrupted her presentation 3 days ago had become not just a friend, but a partner in what Maya suspected would be the most important work of her career. 6 months after that unforgettable conference in Geneva, Maya was sitting in her office at Stanford University when her phone rang with an international number she now knew by heart. Maya! Princess Layla's excited voice came through the speaker. I have news that's going to change everything. Maya smiled. Over the past months, she had gotten used to Princess Layla's enthusiasm for their project. They had been working together remotely, planning what they were calling the Global Health Education Initiative. But Maya hadn't expected anything to happen this quickly. What's going on, Layla? Maya asked, using the name her royal friend insisted she use when they were talking privately. My father has approved the funding. Princess Layla practically shouted through the phone. Maya, he's giving us $50 million to start our program. $50 million! Can you believe it? Maya nearly dropped her coffee mug. $50 million? Are you serious? Completely serious. I spent 3 hours yesterday presenting our proposal to the Royal Council. I showed them all the research we've compiled, all the communities that could benefit from reproductive health education, all the lives we could potentially improve. My father was so impressed that he said this could be the kingdom's greatest contribution to global welfare. Maya felt her heart racing with excitement and nervousness. $50 million was more money than she had ever dreamed of working with. It was enough to create programs that could reach millions of people around the world. But Maya, Princess Layla continued, there's something else. The Royal Council has agreed to establish the Scifi Institute for Global Reproductive Health, and they want you to be the founding director. Maya was speechless for a moment. They want me to... What? Move to Scifi and run the entire program. Maya, this is our chance to turn that embarrassing moment at the conference into something that could help families all over the world. Maya stared out her office window at the California sunshine, trying to process what she was hearing. Layla, this is incredible, but I've never lived outside the United States. I don't speak your language. I don't know anything about your culture. Princess Layla laughed. Maya, do you remember what I knew about global reproductive patterns? 6 months ago? Sometimes the best way to learn is to jump in and start swimming. Besides, you'll have me as your partner, and I promise to teach you everything you need to know about our kingdom. Over the next hour, Princess Layla explained the vision that had convinced her father and the Royal Council. The Institute wouldn't just focus on Scifi or even the Middle East. It would be a global organization, sending teams of educators and healthcare workers to communities around the world that lacked access to reproductive health information. We'll start with our neighboring countries, Princess Layla explained. There are rural communities just a few hours from our capital where women still believe that certain foods can prevent pregnancy, or that you can only conceive during a full moon. Then we'll expand to Africa, Asia, South America, anywhere there's a need. Maya felt a mixture of excitement and overwhelming responsibility. Layla, do you realize how big this is? We're talking about cultural sensitivity, language barriers, working with local governments, training staff in dozens of different countries. I know it's huge, Princess Layla replied. But Maya, we have something that most organizations don't have. We have genuine passion for this work, unlimited funding, and the political connections to make things happen. Plus, I've learned something important over the past 6 months. What's that? I've learned that being wrong can be the beginning of being right, as long as you're willing to listen and learn. And you've taught me that the best science happens when people from different backgrounds work together. Maya thought about all the conversations they had shared over the past months. Princess Layla had transformed from someone who was certain about everything into someone who asked questions about everything. She had read hundreds of research papers, attended virtual conferences, and even started learning Spanish so she could better understand healthcare challenges in Latin America. There's something else, Princess Layla added. I've been working with our palace physician, Dr. Al-Rashid, to implement some changes here in Zephyria. We're starting a pilot program to offer family planning education to all couples before marriage, regardless of when they choose to get married. How's that going? Maya asked. It's fascinating. Some couples are choosing to get married in different months, now that they understand they can plan their families according to their own preferences, rather than just following tradition. We had our first December wedding last month, and the couple specifically said they wanted a September baby, because that's when the weather is perfect for outdoor activities with children. Maya laughed. So you're seeing real behavioral change already? Exactly. And it made me realize that education really can empower people to make choices that are right for their individual circumstances. That's what we want to offer to families, everywhere. 3 weeks later, Maya found herself on a plane to Zephyria, carrying 2 suitcases and a head full of dreams. Princess Layla met her at the airport, and Maya barely recognized her. Instead of the formal royal attire she had worn at the conference, Princess Layla was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a t-shirt that said, "Question everything," in both English and Arabic. "Welcome to your new home," Princess Layla said, giving Maya a huge hug. "Are you ready to change the world?" As they drove through the capital city, Princess Layla pointed out the building that would house their new institute. It was a beautiful modern structure with solar panels on the roof and gardens surrounding the entrance. "We designed it to be a model for sustainable healthcare facilities," Princess Layla explained. "Everything we do here, we want other communities to be able to replicate with their own resources." Maya looked at her friend and partner. This princess, who had gone from making confident but incorrect statements about human biology to becoming one of the most thoughtful advocates for global health education that Maya had ever met. "Layla," Maya said, "can I ask you something? Do you ever regret that moment at the conference? Do you ever wish you hadn't interrupted my presentation?" Princess Layla grinned. "Maya, that was the moment my real education began. Before that day, I thought I knew everything. Now I know how much I still have to learn, and how exciting that learning can be." She pointed to a billboard they were passing, which showed families from different countries around the world. "That embarrassing mistake led us here, to this moment, to this opportunity to help people make informed choices about their families and their futures." Maya smiled as she realized that sometimes the most important journeys begin with someone being completely, confidently, and publicly wrong, as long as they're brave enough to admit it and curious enough to learn what's right. Their institute would go on to educate millions of people around the world about reproductive health. But Maya would always remember that it all started with a princess who wasn't afraid to change her mind when she discovered new evidence. And that, Maya thought, was exactly the kind of scientific thinking the world needed more of.